How much creative liberty should Toys for Bob have? Should they even have creative liberty? Let's find out. What's up guys, Canadian Guy A here, and I am back with pretty much the main issue that a lot of people have been having about the Reignited trilogy if there are any sort of complaints. Now, right off the hop, I want to inform you guys that I love what Toys for Bob has been doing. But some, sadly, are not quite in the same boat. See, the main complaint that their argument is, well, if you don't like it, then go play the original. And then it just gets messy from there. See, when something seems to be off, even by a little bit from creator to creator, in this case Insomniac to Toys for Bob, sometimes the changes are called creative liberty. What is a good example of this? Well, the biggest and most standout ones are whenever one form of entertainment media gets changed into another form. For example, the Harry Potter books to movies. See, some aspects of the original books are altered and changed for whatever reasons, whether it be a creative differences or simply not enough time for in the film. Now, this is not quite a change in media, but a change in hands of designing the game. See, the Reignited trilogy is taking the framework of the original, keeping it the same, but updating it to play on more modern consoles. We all know this. This is not new, but what people argue about are the creative liberties that Toys for Bob has taken to the game. That can be anything from the look of Spyro to how the grass looks. So the question is, should Toys for Bob be allowed to have creative liberties? Well, let's go down this rabbit hole of questions and figure it out. So, should Toys for Bob have creative freedom? Well, let's say no for this example. See, some feel that the Spyro game should have gone the route of the Crash Bandicoot remaster. A safe update with very little added. Details added, but things ever so slightly adjusted, but practically the same game. See, the team on Vicarious Visions did such a fantastic job of making the Crash Bandicoot game look as if we were looking at the game through rose-tinted glasses. We watch the game footage and think, yeah, this is what my mind filled in as a kid. Then you look at the old footage and cringe. But the Reignited trilogy does not quite do the same thing. See, they are making changes to add more to the worlds. Now, some do not like this at all and ask for the same type of remaster that Crash got. But this is where I heavily disagree. Here's why. The original Crash games actually had really decent graphics for its time. It had foliage, really lush worlds, especially for the PlayStation 1. Compared to the original Spyro, where there were a lot of areas that sort of felt empty or repeated. However, Crash Bandicoot is a very, very linear game. You go from A to B and not encouraged it. Sadly, the PS1 discs nor the PS1 could fit or run the game with the openness of Spyro and the graphic depth of Crash Bandicoot. But Crash was able to really go in depth with the ambient areas in terms of graphics because of its limited space. This is why the remaster for Crash worked so well, because the in-depth graphical foundation was already set due to its limited move space. So if we said no to Toys for Bob to have any sort of creative freedom or very little of it, I think we would get a mediocre games in terms of graphic depth. Places like Stonehill are very one-tone, and this would translate into the updated version 1-to-1. It would seem very bland for today's standards, if done 1-to-1. Compared to the past, we now have such a massive depth of graphics. Now we can have games entering Uncanny Valley. So now we have options of either hyper-realistic games, examples like Call of Duty, or stylized like Overwatch. So if Spyro were to go the exact same route of Crash, I don't think it would translate well due to the limitations of the previous console and the size of the game. Just because it worked for Crash does not mean it could work for Spyro. So, okay, this answers the question that yes, Toys for Bob should have a go. There's no criteria as to what can stay and what can go. Yes, things can be... Now, most people are okay with change as an overall concept in a remake/remaster, as long as they don't change things that are iconic to the game. But that's the grand issue. People find different things iconic. Changes that might happen may change something that some think was iconic to the game. That can literally be anything, however, from the way the grass looked to the look of the dragons, anything. People argue whether or not it should be completely different in terms of look and style, or it should literally keep the retro look and just be updated for modern consoles. Then, you got those who are in between. Some think that the Reignited is not changing enough, and some think it's changing too much. So, which side is right? Well, that's the thing when it comes to this giant issue, that no one is right because it's simply subjective. So how do we solve this? How can this question of how much creative liberties is Toys for Bob allowed? Is it even solvable? Well, to me, I think Toys for Bob has done nothing but be kind to the entire Spyro community in terms of listening to the community feedback, and we have made an impact because of that. We asked for changes and Toys for Bob has done so. So Toys for Bob has quite a bit of creative liberty, whether we like it or not, but they have tried to appease us. But at the end of the day, it's their version of the original 3 games. Now, if these games were to replace the original trilogy and throw them away forever, then I can understand why some people are freaking out. But they're not. The originals are still there and will always be there. If you prefer the originals over the Reignited, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But to clip Toys for Bob's wings in their creativity towards the trilogy simply because it's not exactly like the original is not right in my eyes. Here's the thing. Toys for Bob is going to nail some things that is just as good as the original as in terms of creativity. They're also going to do things that may even be better than the original. But there are some things that they may miss the mark on. But again, this can all be subjective. It all depends on the player. So the only real answer that you can have is that as long as Toys for Bob continues to listen to fan feedback as much as possible without them being thrown off their production schedule and keeps, I think, they can have creative liberties. But the key thing here is as long as they remember to keep the essence and the spirit of the original asset in mind as they make a different creative adjustment, then I think that we're going to be just fine. Thanks so much for watching. Cue the extra.